Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to the Clone Zone, episode 4, right? Episode 4?
It is 4.
Yes.
Okay. Today we're talking about episode 4 of The Bad Batch with our friend Pete Fletzer from Around the Galaxy. How's it going, Pete?
It's going great, man. It's really good. It's our first 90-degree day here in New Jersey, so feels like summer has arrived, and hopefully maybe better things on the horizon for this summer, right?
That's it. We were talking about right before this. I was like, yeah, it's hot in Atlanta, like 80 degrees. And Pete's like hitting 90. You're like, okay, well.
Yeah, but in Jersey, it's 90 today. It'll be 60 in 3 days, and it's up and down. It's up and down. So it's all good stuff. How are you guys doing?
We're good.
It's
been a busy day.
Hot. It's hot here, but it's also humid.
Yeah, so you get the Atlanta heat, which is a different animal altogether, I think. Yeah,
It just feels just awful.
That's the whole
Walk
annoying
outside.
Atlanta thing. People say it's not the heat, it's the humidity, which is true.
Yeah.
It's true.
But so we're going to be talking about the episode Cornered today, and we're going to discuss amongst ourselves. If you've never seen the show before, Molly and Pete and I are just going to talk for 20-30 minutes about the episode, and then we're going to get into the chat and answer your questions. If you want to get your question in the queue, you can leave it as a super chat, and we'll start with those, and then we'll hit up the chat when we're done with that. So before we get into the episode, Pete, I want to just ask, how are you liking the series so far?
Yeah, I'm liking it more than I expected. You know, it feels like, and I've watched your previous episodes and conversations I've had with people, and David from Tatooine Sons and I, we've been doing the a Twitter space on Thursdays, and we ask people the same question, and it's a consistent answer. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was going to like it or not, but now I like it. I'm really enjoying it, and I know I'm enjoying it because I'm so excited when I realize it's Thursday and tomorrow is a new Bad Batch. So I'm enjoying it. It's a fun Star Wars series so far, you know.
Do you stay up until 3 to watch it? Okay, yeah,
No.
we can't either. That's our West Coast friends are like, oh, we have to stay up until midnight.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you can. That's an option at least.
Yeah, no, I find I set my alarm for like 5 a.m. on Friday mornings, and I watch that, and then my son will say to me, my 8-year-old who's so into Clone Wars, he'll be like, "Did you watch it already?" I'll be like, "Yeah, I have to though, because I'm going to go on Twitter and people are going to ruin it for me."
I have to. I'm sorry.
I have to.
I'm required, son. I have a podcast. I have to do this. It's the law.
But then you get to watch it again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we watched it before he went to school this morning, and he said, "When you're done with those guys, can we do it again tonight?" I'm like, "Yep, absolutely. We'll watch it again." So it's great.
I'm glad to see so many people, because I was one of those people too that was just like, I'm not sure about a Bad Batch series, but everyone's like giving it a chance and seeming to enjoy it, and that's great. I'm happy that seems to be the consensus across the fandom for the most part.
Well, the thing that I took into it with me was the fact that I always remember that Dave Filoni never delivers a show that is advertised. It's always so much more. There's always so much more to it. And so, yeah, if it was going to be the A-Team in space, I think, I don't think Star Wars fans would be as excited about that. But there's obviously a lot of intrigue, and, just seeing the Empire grow and all these sort of subplots that we're going to see. It makes it so much more than just those 5 guys. And I'm starting to really like those guys. So.
Well, speaking of Dave, what was it like to get one of your questions answered on Good Morning America? Was it?
Yeah, it was Good Morning America with Dave Filoni. Holy cow, that was insane. That was, it was funny. It was Good Morning America had posted on Twitter, we want your questions, and I ran into my little studio here, and I used my phone, and I held it up, and I did my thing, and I sent it in, and I didn't expect to hear from them. And then a couple days later, they said, "Hey, can you sign this release?" And I said, "I can. Would you mind if I reshot the question?" Because then I explained to them, just like I told you, hey, I literally was like running in, and they let me reshoot it, which was amazing. Cool. So, but yeah, and just the fact that they selected it was mind blowing. And it's what I forgot too is that people who don't watch Star Wars and aren't part of our little online world also watch it. So I was getting calls from friends like, "I saw you on Good Morning America today." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you would watch that." So it was wild. And his answer was perfect. I loved, I asked him what he learned from George and what he takes with him as he creates new Star Wars. And he said, kind of remember that, we owe these are stories of hope, and we all could kind of use that, and it's that childlike wonder kind of answer that we talk a lot about.
Well, if you all missed that, there's a link to Pete's Twitter, and it's in his name here, and you can see Dave Filoni answer his question on Good Morning America. So that's cool. But okay, one more question, because you kind of brought it up before we get into the episode itself. Sure. Who is your favorite member of the Bad Batch?
That's a tough one. I think I'm going to go with Wrecker, because before the show started, somebody asked me, and I said, it's not going to be Wrecker because he's my least favorite, and he's already starting to become my favorite. So I'm going to go Wrecker. I just love that kind of big, goofy guy with a big heart. So they got to love that.
I'm the same, and I'll say it every week. I was a Wrecker fan from the start. I was there before it was cool. I always loved it. I always loved Wrecker.
Yeah,
Molly, is it still tech with you?
It is still tech. Yes.
Yes.
And yes, I have to say it with a Kiwi accent, but I'm warming up to, well, I've already warmed up to Wrecker. He's probably my second favorite at this point, but I will say from the beginning, the early Wrecker days, I was like, I don't know about this guy. He's just like Wrecker smash, like, but now we know how much of a big teddy bear he is, and it's sweet.
He certainly was like the most cartoonish thing of Clone Wars, and that. So I'm totally with you on that. Yep.
I'm gonna jump ahead, but since we're talking about Wrecker, I loved in this episode. Not only did he like do that thing where he picked her up and was like holding her, and she was hugging him. That was so sweet. But at the end, when they're like, yeah, Omega, and you're the target of the bounty hunter. And he's like, don't scare the kid. It like immediately made me jump back to the previous episode where he's like, we're all going to die. We're going to die. We're going to die. We're going to be fine. Like, he's growing as an uncle, big brother, whatever role he is filling out here. I like seeing that he's very quickly like picking it up.
Yeah. And I love that. And, I'll be the first one to use the word filler this week, I guess, just because some people have said that already. And I disagree, because I believe one thing that we've learned from another thing we've learned from Filoni is that no frame is wasted, right? I mean, space whales were filler until they became the most important part of Rebels, right? Mm-hmm. So I think like what I love is watching. I think I watch his shows a little bit differently now too, because of Mando and because of these things. And I picked up on last week something as subtle as, Omega was willing to give him her food ration, and that was a lesson to learn. You don't take food from kids. That kid needs it as much as you do. And he's now starting to come around and starting to already have that kind of that familial parent, sort of uncle sort of position with her, and it is really sweet. It's interesting that I imagine each one of the clones is going to play a different role for her, because it's been said a lot, but the way she mimics everything that Hunter does and the way she learns from him, she's learning that from him, and she's learning, probably how to have a heart perhaps from Wrecker, and who knows what she'll learn from the other guys.
Yeah. Well, I want to jump into something that you brought up about, filler, and I'm with you. It wasn't filler. Reefton agrees it's not filler. It showed the Bad Batch having to adjust to being civilians and not having supplies from the Republic. I totally agree with all of that.
Yep.
Just that this was a character episode, and like Reefton says about having to get supplies, it's like, I don't think they got it in the most noble way.
No,
there were a lot of similarities between what they did and what Fennec Shand was doing. She went a little harder. Like, Hunter stole a speeder. She stole a speeder and probably killed the guy that owned it.
Yeah.
Didn't she shoot one of the cops that
she did? I'm glad you brought that up, Molly, because that was one of the things that I walked away watching this episode. I mean, and you go back to last week as well. This series is pulling no punches. I mean, she shot 2 cops in the chest or something like that, and just they flew right off their bikes, and they didn't live. They didn't survive.
No, I doubt it. And the guy she threw out of the car, the speeder, like, he's at least got traction. I don't know.
Yeah. I always like audibly gasp when stuff like that happens, because I'm not used to seeing that intense of a thing happening in something stylized like the Clone Wars. But I appreciated that they didn't hold back with Fennec Shand, because she is this like really famous assassin bounty hunter, and so I did like that they kept her like that and they didn't soften her for animated.
I agree.
Do you think that over the course of the series or season, she will soften up? Will she become an ally to the Bad Batch, or is she going to stay the way she is? Because she's kind of like one of I think Boba Fett uses the term wretched. Sometimes fate steps in to save the wretched.
Yep.
So her turn towards the light might be in the time of the Mandalorian, or maybe it's during the Bad Batch.
It's interesting because we don't know really much about her in Mandalorian. And most of the things she's done, other than kill Toro Calican, which is some of us would say a blessing, but most of the things she's done has been, you could almost argue, for good, or definitely in that gray zone, right? So we don't know if she's truly good or bad, and we don't know where Boba Fett sits, right? And I know this is about Bad Batch, but I tie it together because this morning I tweeted after I watched the episode that I have kind of a weird theory in my head that I wanted to flesh out and talk to you guys about. And I don't know if it's a theory or not because I've seen some people kind of talk about it, but I think that there's a definite connection between her, the Kaminoans. I think she's hired by the Kaminoans. I don't think that's that much of a stretch. It's interesting that she's hired to get Omega, when I thought she was there to get the Bad Batch, right? I think when we saw the trailers, a lot of us thought she was sort of hunting them, but she's there on a mission to bring her somewhere. So my thinking is that she's loyal to the Kaminoans, and in doing so, perhaps she's also loyal to Boba Fett. And I'd love to see that relationship of, how old is she now? She's gonna be what, 17, 18, 19 in this series, based on where she is in Mando, right? Because was that 25 years later, 20 something like that.
30 something years or so.
Yeah. So she's got to be still pretty young. Boba is about 13 or 14 at this point, right?
It's a good point. Like in my head, I was just kind of visualizing Fennec Shand from The Mandalorian. I was like, I know she's younger, but I was still just picturing present day Ming Na Wen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And she's
That's a good point.
The voice of Omega is 37 years old, right? So
right.
But so if there's this interesting relationship, and I'm not talking about a ship, but a relationship between the two of them, that might be a really interesting thing to explore. And then you think about what we saw with that really brief teaser for Boba Fett at the end of Mando. There's an interesting dynamic between the two of them, and the way they worked together in Mando, the way they kind of knew how each other worked. Clearly, Boba went back to save her in Mando. So there's a history there, and I'd love to see maybe that history starts here because of her loyalty to the Kaminoans. And I wasn't sure, but now I'm feeling much more sure that we will see Boba Fett sometime in this series.
I agree with you. I like that idea. Because Boba Fett wouldn't just save anyone that he found, in the desert. I imagine that they have a pretty rich backstory, and maybe we'll see some of that.
Well, I kind of like the idea that, maybe even if in this series, maybe they're competitive, maybe they're at odds with each other as bounty hunters, and or maybe they're friends, and that would explain why he saves her. But I'm also fine with this idea that no, they were enemies, and then Boba Fett has turned his life around, and he showed up and saved her, and like started and then she's like, okay, well, I owe you a life debt now, and either way, they can have fun with Boba Fett in like a lot of different ways for this series. Yeah,
maybe she saves Boba Fett at some point in the series, and he doesn't return the favor till Mandalorian. So that's but I'm starting to feel like, again, it took me, I'm with you, Alex, because it took me some time to recognize that she's got to be much younger, right? Obviously, just from the time difference. But then I started to think about where that lines up with Boba, and it's probably a couple years. So maybe it's like an older sibling kind of relationship.
Right. Yeah, because Boba would be like 15 or so. I think he's 12 in Attack of the Clones.
Right.
I think.
Yep.
As far as Fennec and Omega's relationship, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point, if she does become an ally, she kind of feels sorry for her and maybe helps save her instead of taking her back to the Kaminoans. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, I think so much depends on what the Kaminoans are really up to, and and what her mission is. And I think that's one of the great things about a 16-part series, and season 1 of what may be multiple seasons is the fact that it can set up nicely for a couple different twists, right? She might be being sent by the Kaminoans, but maybe she turns on the Kaminoans, or all those sort of pieces that can go there. But I agree with you, Molly. I think I almost can see her being, sort of an unofficial part of the Bad Batch by the time the season ends, as sort of an ally to them.
I'm interested to see more of Nala Se, because she kind of took part in letting Omega get away and get out. Right. So I don't think it's her that's hiring bounty hunters to go and get her.
I kind of like this idea that there are all these layers of maybe Lama Su is trying to do his thing behind the Empire's back, so he hired Fennec Shand, but Nala Se is doing something behind Lama Su's back and trying to keep Omega safe and gone, or we don't know what their relationship is exactly.
Boba could be the link between Lama Su and Fennec Shand, and that could be how she got hired.
Oh, that would be cool. That would be cool. And sort of maybe she brings him into that sort of bounty hunter life.
Yeah, that's a lot of people have been speculating that we could get the Boba Fett Cad Bane arc from the Clone Wars. Like they might just bring it into Bad Batch, and obviously it couldn't be a 1-for-1 translation because it has to be about the Bad Batch, but they could kind of fit that story in to this new series. I like that idea that we would get Cad Bane back and kind of see Boba Fett's introduction into the bounty hunter life, like you said.
I agree. What happened to Taun We?
Taun We.
I'm worried about her.
She showed up to that's still my favorite line is from that entire movie. Taun We's here. All right, it's so much, such a perfectly delivered kid line. Just great.
Taun We's here.
Taun We's here.
Lama Su's aide. So Nala Se is just like a different job. She has a different job.
Omega was her medical assistant, so she's more. I think more.
Nala Se is more of a scientist.
Yeah.
Taun We is more like an aide to the prime minister. So she's probably doing other things, I hope.
Maybe she's the one who's plotting all this stuff behind the scenes that will eventually roll out.
Well, something that I really liked about this episode, and Molly, you brought up how Fennec and Omega had kind of a rapport, and Fennec seemed to kind of be charmed by Omega, because how can you not? But I think that was part of Omega's growth in this episode. Was so far everyone she's interacted with has been pretty friendly. Like outside of Camino, she's just like, yeah, this is a fun adventure. I'm safe with my friends. And then she meets this person and she's like, yeah, they seem nice. Of course I trust them.
Yep.
And that was kind of just her learning that, not everyone is out to love me and help me. And I have to have some discretion. But to her credit, like the second shots were fired, she was like, nope, I'm fighting against Fennec. Like I'm trying to save Hunter. Yeah. I felt like she cut on quick.
And it's those really kind of subtle things that have been done so well in this series is, at the beginning of this episode, she was just like, oh, why can't we just go exploring? Let's go do fun stuff. Everything is new and exciting to me. And in a way, it's also, Jerry mentioned on your show last week about how you look at Omega as a father and, somebody who has an 11-year-old daughter. It's kind of, I look at it a little bit differently. And I definitely see that kind of, he's learning what he needs to do. Like he forgets that he's got to be the fact that he takes her on 2 missions 2 weeks in a row where she's at complete danger and he's lost her twice kind of tells you that like this is a new thing for him. He's used to, Echo and Wrecker being able to take care of themselves. He's used to have her go and get into trouble. But again, it's set up so nicely with her just looking at the star map and being like, can we just go there and hang out? Let's go and explore. And the fact that she's easily distracted, and you look at, I don't know how old she is in the show, but I mean, that's what happens with kids. They find something interesting. They wander off and you lose them for a moment. And that's, the other thing I think has been great about Omega is there's 2 great things happening in this series right now, in my opinion, that are, as a Star Wars fan for 44 years, it's so cool to see. One, from an Omega standpoint, she is actually reminding us that the Star Wars universe is very dangerous, right? She steps away for a moment, and next thing you know, she's hanging off a tower, right? And she's so like it's a dangerous place. It's cool looking, there's all kinds of cool characters, but it's dangerous. And the second thing we're seeing is we're getting those answers to all those things that we wondered as kids, is like, what happened when the Empire took over? What was it like? Did people want them to be there? Did people not want them to be there? And we saw on this planet, they what was it called? It's
the Pantorans.
Pantoran.
Yeah, they were excited to see clone troopers walking down the streets. That was that. It was the line that Hunter has is the war is over, so they're happy. And you think of it that way, and then you think about in our world, a war is over, people are happy, but really, why? You know.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting seeing how different it was on Seleucami when people are like panicking, trying to, get off the planet, having to deal with getting chain codes, whereas on Pantora you have basically a parade.
Yep.
Of people, and everybody's like cheering and they're really excited. So yeah, it's interesting seeing how different worlds are kind of taking this news.
I said this in my review, but my stupid nerdy squadron's mind immediately went to well, yeah, you can be a Pantoran Imperial, so this makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. That makes a lot of sense. Yep.
I want to talk about Echo.
Okay. Yeah.
And his stuff in this episode was really cool. And I think you said it in your review, Alex, that anytime we get something Echo-centric, it like really piques your interest. Because I thought it was hilarious that he basically got sold as a droid because the shopkeeper guy thought he was a droid. And I think you said something about him kind of like figuring out who he is, finding his identity, and hoping to see more of Echo just being who he is. And maybe Echo and Omega will have kind of a episode with just the two of them together.
Yeah, I hope so. Like the first episode, Tech brought up the line, like from A New Hope, that or maybe Return of the Jedi, that you're more machine now than man.
Yeah.
And he didn't mean that in an insulting way. He's just, that's a fact.
Yep.
And like Echo didn't seem to love that, and he didn't love being mistaken for a droid. He didn't like being sold, even if it was temporary.
He was like, I'm worth more than
I'm
that.
worth more than 2,000.
Right.
Yeah, that was great.
And there's a lot going on that I'm like, I really hope they touch on this, that Echo struggles with who he is and also his place within the group, because I mean, that's a question we have raised. It's like he and Tech feel a little bit redundant sometimes. And so I wonder if he feels like he's a little bit left out of the group because he is a reg. And I'd like to see them all kind of work on that. And Echo just hasn't gotten a lot of time in the spotlight in the series so far.
Yeah, and we were talking before about how she'll learn, Omega will learn something from everybody, and I think you guys both nailed it. Is she'll learn from him what it's like to fit in, right? So yeah, maybe that's her lesson from him, is because he's trying to deal with it too. And I like that. I like that they put him in there that way. And you're right. He's presented as Clone Force 99, but he's not. He's an adopted brother, just like Omega's an adopted sister to the group.
Yeah,
I mean, he's still pretty new. Yeah,
he's kind of been following along with them, trying to figure out how he fits in with them. And it's interesting because in this episode, he's in charge of these other droids, and he has that line where he's like, all right, men, let's get ready. And they go fix the ship. And
we're going into the field. I love that.
Yeah, it was really cute because I feel like that was great for him because he got to feel like a leader again.
There's also a little L337 action happening with sort of droid rights, if you will, right? Because he's in a unique position. I mean, he's part droid and he's part human now, and being sold. And it is interesting because I guess as soldiers, as clone soldiers, you just do whatever you need to do for the mission. And to be sold as a droid was probably we saw it from him. It was a very difficult thing to swallow, and kind of, I mean, to your point, Alex, he hasn't been that way for that long, or he hasn't been consciously that way for that long. So that's a lot to get used to. And now you're being sold as a robot. It's kind of
like, yeah, he's willing to do it for the good of the team, but it's also like, at least haggle.
Yeah, right. Get a couple more bucks for me, dude.
And it's like there's a lot going on with that. It's all played for laughs, but I'm like, you just scammed that dude out of $3,000, and he didn't seem that bad. A little bit snotty, but like he could have been, I don't know, show him kicking Clink, and that would immediately make everyone be like, oh, I don't care what happens to this man.
Right.
Yeah.
But they didn't, and I think that was on purpose.
When I was watching the episode, Alex had already watched it and done his review, and then I watched it, and we were talking about this, and I was like, yeah, he just didn't want to buy their bomb.
Yeah.
And then
they just do a black market weapons deal, and like that makes him worthy of being scammed out of 3,000 credits.
But like we were saying before, and I think Alex, you did say it in your review today, which I watch them every week after I watch it myself. Yeah, this episode lives in the gray area. A lot of it is and that's an interesting thing for it makes for just very interesting storytelling, because you have these, I mean, let's face it, the clones were literally built in a laboratory to be soldiers, follow rules, and kill the enemy. And now these guys who never really kind of followed orders, that was kind of their gig. But now they have to try to not, they need to fit in. And I mean, they even go, I mean, they give Wrecker the line, the civilian stuff is easy. It's kind of, showing, we're learning how to deal with the Empire through their eyes, right? And how to deal with this seismic shift in the galaxy through their eyes. And I think that's a really interesting way to tell this story.
It reminded me a bit of Ahsoka's Walkabout, the season 7 arc, where now she doesn't have the safety net of the Jedi Council. Like they're doing the same thing, where they're like, they just ask that port administrator, like, hey, could you just not scan our ship? And he's like, sure. And they're like, what do you want?
Yeah.
So they give him credits, and then he just stands there, and I love Tech. He's just like, okay, I guess he wants more. Here you go.
Yeah.
But like you said, Alex, like they should have known that for someone wanting to haggle for money to look aside from scanning the ship, like that kind of person would absolutely sell you out if someone came looking for you.
Yeah.
So
and I think that all goes. That was the first time. Well, obviously, it was the first time we knew Fennec was in the show. But my very first question at that point was, "Who's she working for?" And that's an interesting question. And we don't know Fennec that well. She could very well be playing both sides or a third side if it's good for her. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think do we all think Kamino is probably the most likely? I'm kind of hopeful that they're gonna pull the rug out from under. The Kamino's a red herring, just because it is like that makes the most sense.
It feels so obvious, right? But yeah.
I don't want Fennec to be working for Tarkin or someone like that. Just like, and I hope it's like with the Kaminoans or Boba Fett or something like that.
Or maybe it's a third party we haven't met yet that has an interest in Omega.
I'm doing a video on. I already did a video on this. This is going to come out on Sunday. And my wild, like, I'm just going to throw something out there. It's Crimson Dawn, because I'm still planting my flag that Dryden Voss is going to be in this show.
Well, you said it a couple of weeks ago. They didn't make that Dryden Voss model for one 30-second scene.
Exactly. I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but he's coming, so that's gonna be my random shot in the dark.
You need to hashtag it. Bring Dryden Voss back or whatever.
Yeah, because I wonder who else knows about Omega, and like maybe word got out somehow, and there's multiple people with the whole tracking fob thing. Like multiple people have her name and are trying to get a hold of her, so then they can turn around and
killing my dreams.
So then they can turn around and make a buck from the Kaminoans.
I think. Does anyone have anything else they want to say before we move on to questions?
The only thing I wanted to point out was, did anybody else pick up the anagram for Idaflor as Florida?
Florida.
Yeah. It took me a second because I was writing stuff down as I was watching the episode, and I was like, wait a minute, that's Florida. But that's I think that's about the most I have, other than I think I read somewhere that the voice of the droid, the protocol droid, was the woman who did Padme in the Tartakovsky
really?
Yeah, Clone
I didn't
Wars,
know
which
that.
is kind of a cool little connection. I just love those. Those are the things that I love, are those little silly little Easter eggs, those little connections. So, but
Yeah.
no, again, I would just reiterate that I saw it immediately on Twitter, filler. But this was a really important, much like, and I will get flamed for this, but I love the Martez sisters arc for Ahsoka for the same reason you just talked about, Alex, because it showed what life is really like, what happens when our favorite characters, our heroes, need to make decisions in the gray area, and that's what we're seeing here. And it's yeah, and plus we didn't even mention the fact that it was basically the Coruscant Attack of the Clones chase scene, which was fantastic, and the action that was in this episode was some of the best animated action we've seen in a while. So
I love the Martez sisters too, because it gave us a look at what civilians could possibly think about Jedi, that not all normal people think that Jedi are just these cool, like, peacekeepers.
Well, I mean, it's the whole Luminara Unduli thing, which they don't come out and say it, but it's her. When like their parents die and she shows up and she's like, "May the Force be with you."
Yeah, good luck.
Like, that's it. That's all you got. No compassion, no hug. Like, come on, man. Like that's I think that's important to see. And
there's something else I was trying to think of. Oh, Alex, you pointed out that the Solistan guy had pupils and that was weird.
Yeah.
It made me think he was an Ugnaught at first. Like I wasn't sure what he was. Maybe he's an Ugnaught Solistan kind of hybrid.
And also, I want to give a shout out to the truck driver who was just jamming out.
Someone asked a question about that, or posed we'll talk about him.
Okay.
The walrus,
because he was great. But I wanted to just talk about Clink for a second. Because adorable, but also, and I said this in my review too, but like everyone going like, look how cute that little boy is. And I'm like, they've been around since Star Wars Resistance. Like I remember him waddling into the Colossus and I was like, this is the best droid I've ever seen.
It's funny.
I'm glad everyone loves Clink now.
I tweeted that he's both the most and least Star Wars robot I've ever seen. Because and I loved, and then when I watched your review and you reminded me that it was in Resistance, and I have to admit I don't recall seeing him because I tried to get into Resistance, I really did. I didn't get into it the way I did these other ones, but I'm just glad that robot exists. We need Clink, and I want him to have gotten on the ship with them when they left. I want him back, him and Gonki. I want them together.
Yeah, I kept saying that too. I'm like, I'm waiting for them to pick up a droid. So I mean, they have Echo and they have Tech, but I feel like other than Gonki, they could use an astromech droid.
Yeah, you never know when you're going to need to fly a fighter that needs an astromech. Pick up Clink. Hell, you've already stolen $3,000 from the guy. What's another droid? Another droid to go in there, yeah.
And those little animals were from Resistance too. I forget what they're called.
Vorpax, yeah. That's I just liked seeing that kind of synergy between the animation shows, because like Resistance, I liked Resistance well enough, but I know a lot of people just didn't get into it, and that's totally fine. But I like that it's still getting acknowledged within the universe, and sometimes it does feel like it just gets swept to the side and like it's set apart from all the other animated series. And I was like, it has some good stuff in it.
Yeah. Oh, there definitely was some great stuff in it, but it was just it was difficult for me to let me put it this way. I don't know that I'd be getting up at 5 a.m.
Right. I'm with you there.
This. Yeah.
It's definitely like it's so much more aimed at kids than I think even the Clone Wars or Rebels were when they first started their season 1.
Yeah.
Like I think they were starting out at an even younger audience, and I'm sure it would have aged up, but I was just kind of going in it and watching it with like that. I'm just going to watch this with my child's mind and have fun and look at the bright colors.
The funny thing is, Christopher Sean was he's such a great guy.
He's the best.
But my son, who was into Resistance right off the beginning, I know this isn't a Resistance discussion, but not even he was like attached to it like he is Clone Wars and Bad Batch. Like, it was a couple years ago, so he was a little bit younger, but he wasn't like, oh, we have to watch it this week. So again, it was a very different show, and it did have so many cool things in it. And like to your point, Alex, and I think it's one of my favorite things about it is those things are coming back in this show, and I'm sure we'll see them elsewhere, and I'm sure we'll see a live action, Vorpak somewhere, and it'll be, we'll see all these things. So
I think I'm predisposed to defend it because of Donald Faison. I will hype Faison's a treasure.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we covered Resistance when it was coming out weekly, but we didn't do live streams for it.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some questions. First up from Jacob the Hodge. Thank you so much. Bets on how long until Hondo shows up. He does seem like he's a mainstay. Resistance is the only animated show he hasn't appeared in, so I feel like it'll happen.
If it went one more season, we would have seen him. Yeah, I don't know, Molly. What do you think? I think it'll be. I could see it sooner than later. I feel like they're starting to very quickly play into that pirate zone sooner than we expect.
Yeah, I think Hondo is one of those characters that could literally be plopped into an episode and just about anything.
Yep.
So I think this show would be a great place to put him. I'm curious, like, how Filoni feels about him. If he is a super big Hondo fan, then yeah, he's going to show up. If he's like, I'm done with Hondo, then probably not.
I think he probably likes Hondo, or else he wouldn't have put him in Rebels. And the fact that he's at Galaxy's Edge, like, you get that synergy.
100%. Yep.
Like, I want them to go to Batuu. I'm surprised no show, even like The Mandalorian, I'm surprised they didn't just shoot at Disney World before it opened or something.
So my prediction is at some point Mando will go to Batuu just so they can have Mando walk around Batuu at Disney. And it makes sense. I mean, right? It's we've seen it in the video games or in the VR games. Yeah, we will definitely go to Batuu in one of these shows sooner than later. And I'd love it if we maybe Hondo, we see him at Batuu. That would be awesome.
Yeah, like the first time he went to Batuu or something. Yeah. I think
he's in Batuu in the Sims game.
Yeah.
You can work for him.
I see Hondo is kind of like a Dryden Voss type character, where if they become mercenaries and they're taking various jobs and they need to start to decide what kind of jobs they want to take, instead of just like, do we want to work for someone like Crimson Dawn? Is working for someone like Hondo that bad? Hilo has opinions.
I see what Red Tornado 98. Thanks for your super chat. Glad to know dubstep is canon. I guess that was referring to the guy driving the truck.
Yeah.
Which
I love that model is the updated version of like the Walrus Man model. I'll go take care of him in a second. I'll go now.
Okay.
No, he's the Walrus Man action figure. It's so cool that because was it in the Martez sisters arc that we saw that same model, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But I like just getting a glimpse into the lives of like just regular people trying to do their job and just being completely clueless just about with everything that's happening behind him.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those really cool Star Wars things that I think that's what adds so much to what we're seeing in the animated shows and even in Mandalorian. Just again, it's that thing that I love is seeing like how is this impacting people? And I think that's one of the things why people love Rogue One. A lot of people don't use that as their example, but that's one of the great things about Rogue One is you see the impact of the Empire on people who aren't the heroes, and the impact of a big fight in the sky going on while there's a Walrus Man jamming after some dubstep. It's kind of a cool thing to see.
Yeah.
I think this is a pretty good point. Aqualish usually seem kind of upset about something, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm just living my life."
Yeah.
He was like,
Hopefully, he didn't get fired for losing his shipment.
I feel like he was like Rostalish. He was like, yeah, man, whatever, it's cool.
Crix Teas, I hope I pronounced that right. I did my best. Thank you for your super chat. Noticing how Echo has stopped taking people's crud. Looking back, he was the authority simp, but now he just doesn't care. Also, Wrecker head bump again.
That's
the
great.
authority simp. I like that.
I'm glad he brought up the Wrecker head bump because I did have that in my notes. And the second time he takes a shot to the head and goes down, and I mean he was out of commission in episode 3 because of that, and he went down easy here. And boy, whatever is going on with that chip, it's getting knocked around in there. So I think it was deliberate that he got hit with that he hit the wall with his head. I think that was a very deliberate way to take him down.
Yeah, last week we were just like, oh no, like what's gonna happen next time? Is Wrecker just gonna immediately get triggered and his chip's gonna go off? But didn't happen. But yeah, another head injury, which I'm sure he's used to. But yeah.
Well, maybe one thing that I hadn't thought about, and it may be the case, is maybe getting hit in the head so many times is actually helping him. Maybe it's knocking it loose. Maybe he'll be the only one that doesn't get activated if they figure out how to activate them.
Yeah, they didn't really touch on.
He'll fall out of his ear.
Yeah,
they didn't touch on that stuff from last week, but I'm still very wary of that thing causing problems in the future.
100%. Yeah.
But they brought it up too much last week for me to be like, this is fine.
just a head injury.
But I agree about Echo just like being over everything as well. Because he got the name Echo because he was constantly repeating orders.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm glad that he's over that.
Yep.
Bakey, thanks for your super chat. What if Jango Fett and Fennec Shand's DNA was combined to create Omega?
Whoa.
I doubt it. But
yeah, it's like we're getting into. I think she's just a female clone of Jango. I think that's all it has to be. Everyone's like throwing in Palpatine ideas, or like I made the joke. I saw the joke of Omega 1 Kenobi because she said hello there. Like,
I'm not sure if she's just a straight up female Jango. I think there's something. I don't want her to be a Palpatine clone. I don't want that whole thing. I don't want her to be Rey's answer. None of that, please. But I don't know what her story is. I don't think my gut tells me she's not straight up Jango, but clearly she's a clone, right? Because I went back and you watch, and when they first meet her, they even Tick says unknown origin, human female unknown origin. So that's actually kind of telling. He didn't catch Fett DNA in there. So
that is weird that he said that, even though he knew she was a clone.
Yeah,
maybe he's every time he's like, I thought it was obvious. He's just covering up for something that he should have known sooner.
Right. That's his sort of. How could you guys not see that? It was so obvious to me.
Duh. I knew the whole time. I promise.
Yeah. Interesting.
He's like, oh no, I meant the unknown regions. Obviously,
he didn't do that this episode. I don't think that's growth for Tech. I don't think he withheld information.
It was a big week for him, but it is interesting because I don't. So, Alex, you think she's a female Jango clone? What about you, Molly? Where are you coming in on this one?
I think pretty much the same. As soon as people threw out Palpatine clone ideas with her hair and everything, I was like, I don't know, maybe there's some truth to that, but yeah, I kind of think she's just a clone that maybe they were just experimenting with. And I still think it's a possibility that she's force sensitive, but I think that's just by the Kaminoans just doing a lot of experimentation. And I don't know where they would have gotten like the genetic DNA for that, or the midichlorians, or Like something's going on there, and I don't know what it is, but I don't really have any solid theories on who could be adding to her DNA.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think she's not just a female clone of Django. Sure. There's more to her, but I'm just like, I'm gonna go with the simple answer and just assume like that she is an enhanced clone of Django Fett, whether it's force sensitivity or some other power. Yeah. And part of that is just so that like I'm totally open to it being something else, but part of it is I don't want to like dive in too deep, and I want to be surprised by it.
It's funny you say that because that's exactly where my head was. Yes, I did jump on. In fact, I tweeted and got some BS from people and some positive from people about because the way she stands on her poster, you could definitely make some Palpatine connections, and but that's that's all just sort of fun play. I'm with you. I hope it's something that we didn't see coming at all, and I look, that's the thing about even Clone Wars and Mandalorian and everything we've seen so far. The good shows have been a surprise. We're like, oh wow, I kind of didn't see that coming. I mean, we saw it coming, but we're like, it still is delivered in a way that is, they've done a great job of even though we knew that Tamora Morrison was in Mandalorian, it was still delivered in a way that was well done. Even though we knew Ahsoka was coming, it was still done in a way that felt fulfilling and surprising in its own way. And I think that's where we're going to go with this. I don't think any of us are going to be like, oh, I didn't see that coming, but I think it'll be done in a way that's satisfying. And I don't know if we'll get the answer this season or not.
Yeah, and I mean, they even tend to do things that, like, the whole time for season 2 of The Mandalorian, people were like, is Luke going to be in this? And I was like, no, they should not do that.
Right.
And then the second he showed up, I was like, my heart's just pounding. Like, oh my God, they're doing it. And I'm loving it. Like, even if it's something that I don't want, they usually pull it off in a way that I'm like, this is fun.
I think that's the biggest challenge that the three of us have, and most of the people probably in the chat, is we spend so much time talking to people about Star Wars that we forget that these things are made for people who are kind of outside of that circle.
Right.
And yeah, the Luke thing was a welcome surprise for all of us, but I talked to my 70-something-year-old dad, and he was like, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen, seeing Luke come back. And so it works there too. And so whatever they do with her, now I feel like animation is for a slightly more obsessed audience than live action. So conceivably they could take a little bit of a deeper dive. But again, I think it's still not going to be, for the 5,000 people on Twitter that are convinced it's Palpatine. It's going to be done in a way that works for everybody. So,
yeah, I agree. I agree with you about the animated shows being for the slightly more obsessed as well. The less reg.
The less regs. That's right.
Yeah.
Henry Young, thanks for your super chat and question. How does Echo put on his helmet? I need to see a picture of it again, but I was kind of trying to noodle that out watching it the second time, because he has this like Lobot style wraparound.
Yeah.
And then he had like not a ski mask, but
it looks like a welder's mask.
A welder's mask.
Yeah. I think that's probably what it is.
But I feel like it's just a 2-piece, like front and back. The back probably hooks up to his headpiece, and then the front has a hinge on it somewhere. I don't know.
I think you're probably right.
It was almost I saw it as almost an homage to Anthony Daniels, like a human in a droid costume, and I thought that was very cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's wearing like that black body glove.
Yeah,
underneath it all too, so that does make sense.
Black Barth, thank you for your super chat and question. I think Fennec is also working to show there's some honor from the scum and villainy, since she just paid the guy instead of killing him.
I've seen people throw that around, and I disagree. That's her just knowing that there's a person willing to give her information. Like, he didn't really do anything wrong in her eyes. She's like, if they show back up, call me again. Like, here's some incentive to continue being crappy. She still threw a man out of his speeder. That's all I need to know to be like, okay, at this point in her life, she's not that honorable. Well, further on down the line, I'm willing to buy honorable Fennec Shand from The Mandalorian, but
just because he couldn't follow through with her this time doesn't mean like they couldn't work together again in the future. So she has established this kind of relationship with this guy now. Why kill him? Keep him around.
Yeah, if they've passed back through, it's good to know that you're going to get the call.
She has more to gain by keeping him alive than just shooting him for no reason.
Right. And why shoot Sullivan with pupils, right? I mean, that's
so rare.
Thing.
Very
so
rare.
Batman is my dad. Thanks for your question. What's up, homies? Sorry, that just tickled me. What's up, homies? Do y'all think Omega's headpiece has some special properties like power enhancing or dampening, or is it just a piece of jewelry?
We talked about early on that it was a tracker of some kind.
I threw that out like just random wild speculation, but I think it probably is just like a tie back to Camino.
Yeah.
And when she took it off in episode 2, it was like her saying, I'm not there anymore. And I need to it was after the Nexu attack. She's like, I need to not pretend I'm on Camino anymore and keep my eyes open and leave my past behind. I think that's all it was supposed to be, but I'm still prepared for them to reveal something about it down the line.
Because Nala Se has one just like it.
Right.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's the way I looked at it. It was so similar to Nala Se. It was kind of like to Alex's point, taking it off and just saying, "All right, I'm on my own now. I'm no longer their assistant. Now I have to be my own person." And but yeah, like you said, who knows? Maybe it's a tracking device, and that's how Fennec Shand found him. Who knows?
It's one of those, just like you brought up the Purgil, like who could have guessed that would have come back at the very end? So who knows what's important and what's not in the first 4 episodes. I
still feel like the Japor snippet was the most wasted opportunity. That should have come back in Rise of Skywalker somewhere. That would have been awesome. Just those I love those little things, you know?
That's Greg Pak brought it back in the Vader comics that he's
right
now. And
it's
very effective.
Yeah.
And Batman is my dad also. Thanks for another super chat. Just says Reka.
I tweeted the other day that I only say the names of the characters the way Omega does. I say them Rika, Tick, Eco, Crosshair, Hunter, and my kids hate me because that's I might have said Rika about 40 times in a row, and they were just like, "All right, Dad, we get it. Reka, we get it."
I try not to fall into Korg. Like that's where my my voice wants to go.
Yeah. Nate Bennett, thanks for your super chat. Predictions for how the season ends.
Man, I think it's way too early. I
think if Omega is force sensitive, I think the season ends in us getting like some kind of showing of that.
I think we'll know. Yeah, I think we'll know what her secret is, what her enhancement is.
Yeah, but I don't know. I keep forgetting this is 16 episodes, and we got a while to go.
Literally 25% of the way in. And do we know if it's planned for multiple seasons? I mean, I think it's a safe assumption. It feels like it.
They haven't announced anything, but there was an interview where they said it's 16 episodes. They were like, is it going to be multiple seasons? And they were like, well, we never know, but we sure hope we get to tell more stories with these kids. So I'm like, okay, they're probably working on season 2 right now.
So that being said, my prediction is this will end with the beginning of a clone revolution on Camino.
Oh, that'd be great. I do hope that happens.
I do too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having trouble because this is really the format that most of the animated shows take is like when you look at Rebels and Resistance, especially, it's kind of a bottle season where most of the season takes place on Lothal, or most of it takes place on the Colossus, and that kind of saves on animation and budget. And then in season 2, something happens and like they start going out into the galaxy more. But they're already doing that in this season. Like Disney very clearly was like, do whatever you want. You got the budget for it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a testing the waters kind of thing.
Well, the other thing to keep in mind too is, and it's before the volume existed, one of the things that I remember reading was the reason there was no Star Wars television that was planned to create Star Wars television was because you just keep the sets and you can reuse them. Now, of course, the volume changes everything. However, Clone Wars, the fact that they did season 7 and it went to multiple planets and we saw multiple things and we saw the Bad Batch, they started building models and started building, pieces that are more easily repeated and reused. Now that being said, obviously they're not going back to places we've been yet other than Camino, but it's they're in a unique spot in that they've gone through the motions. They've built the animation teams are better than they were before. And to your point, Alex, they're probably like, yes, this is working, so spend money. But it's pulling from piles and piles of Clone Wars animation. And again, this style looks cleaner, or it looks identical, but it's a little bit cleaner, a little bit more cleaned up, a little higher res. But it's that same style. So I thought it was interesting that they didn't shift styles, which told me that they're using a lot of older models as well.
I think that's a great point. That yeah, they're not building this from scratch. It is building upon what came before.
Yep.
And even like we're seeing the resistance models being pulled in as well.
Yep.
Agreed, John Booz. We
I
should have
wish.
gotten that Stormtrooper revolt. Might as well get a Clone Trooper one.
Yeah, like just give me something.
Right. Yes.
Billy Eline. Thank you for your question. Am I the only one annoyed that Hunter is always wearing war paint? Is it permanently part of his face? Seems to go against them being undercover. Yeah, I think that's a tattoo, but I'm sure it's one he's regretting having.
It's a Mike Tyson tattoo of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
It's a very intense face tattoo, and it's, I love that Omega hasn't even said anything about it. She's just like, I love everyone for exactly what they look like and who they are. And
Hunter could, this is an animation thing for sure, like just to not change the head of the model too much, but like take off the red headband. We're trying to be incognito, bright red headband with a skull on it. Like
the skull on it, right?
Chill.
Yeah. And
put a hat on.
Right. Shoulder pauldrons with the number 99 on them still. It's like
he's actually bald and he's insecure about it. So the headband is attached to his wig and he can't take it off.
That makes sense.
That'd be funny. They catch up to him and he's taking it. He's like putting it back on. You just see this bald head. I can identify with that.
Crix Teas, thanks for another super chat. Any chance she was alive when Jango was? Would be sweet if he knew he had a daughter.
Omega. Okay, so she's 10, 12. So yeah, I think so. Yeah. I would say that she's 10 at the youngest, which means she's actually 5. And so yeah, she would have been around 2 years before Jango died. I think that makes sense.
So what about this, to my Fennec Shand connection? What if Boba knows he has a sister and he's the one who hired Fennec somehow to go get his sister back?
Okay, I can see that.
I like that. I can deal with that.
That's an out of left field idea that we're all assuming Camino. But
right.
And so like he and Fennec might already be friends.
Yeah.
Like it is interesting to me that Fennec reached out and was like, I didn't get her, but I got close. And you didn't see Lama Su on the other end.
Right.
Because it's like, we're all assuming that. Why not just show it?
Right.
Why present this mystery?
Right. Right. All right. That's my new theory. It's Boba hired her to go get his sister. And now I'm with you, Alex. She's a Fett clone. All right. Good. All right. I'm good. I'm done.
I like that, but I already did the video on Sunday, so it's
do another one next week. Another one next week. It's fine.
Daniel Zlatkin, thank you for your question. The Emperor is prominent on the poster. What do you think? I guess you mean, what do you think? What do we think about his role in the show? Will we see him more? I'm wondering if I wouldn't mind if he kept popping up in holograms and stuff, but I think that on the poster, it's just kind of trying to drive home when this story takes place, that it's the rise of the Empire.
Yeah,
it's during that speech.
Yeah, I saw it as sort of the specter of the Empire, sort of,
like him being in the. I'm just looking at the posters now. Like he's at the top. Isn't that the same as the Rise of Skywalker poster?
It's similar.
Is it?
Or I feel like another poster did the same thing, where he's kind of like in the background. But it's I think it's
Oh
just
yeah, I know what you're saying. Okay.
I think it's just showing that like Palpatine is behind everything that's happening. He's pulling all the strings. He's got all the connections. We're all just his puppets.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Yes.
It's never going away.
Never.
Oh my
never,
gosh, I
never.
just saw that there's an Omega Funko Pop to pre-order, so
Oh my gosh.
You
I
just
gotta
went ahead
go.
and did that, I assume.
BRB.
Okay, well, while you do that, Matt Boshi, thanks for your question. She's a Django clone with sugar spice and everything nice, and a little bit of Chemical X filled in there.
Yep.
A solid Powerpuff Girls reference. Which
I like that.
I know that to bring it back to Donald Faison, he's about to play. I forget the professor's name, but in the Powerpuff Girls reboot,
movie. Yeah.
Donald Faison's going to play the professor, which I love. I'm going to see that now.
Like you weren't anyway. Come on.
Theral Unification, thank you for your super chatting question. Why did Omega leave the toy on the ground? Could we get a leash for Omega? What exactly were the creatures with glowing eyes in the crate next to where the toy was? Oh yeah. I think that was just meant to be something like spooky, but I don't know what else has glowing eyes.
I didn't recognize the creature. Yeah, I just thought it was like it's a bunch of very quick things to show that like, okay, you've separated yourself from your family, and it's scary. Like a growling creature, and then a swoop bike almost hits you, and you're alone. And I'm gonna pull up the episode real quick and see if I can find it. Though.
Nothing says freak out a kid like glowing eyes, so it works for that. But it was, you know what I thought was cool was it was basically it was Jyn Erso's Stormtrooper toy, except it was a clone trooper, which I thought was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
And now I guess we'll see those at Galaxy's Edge at some point.
I think you already can. All right, I'm trying to.
I totally thought about this for a second, and I was like, wait, no, they growled, so I don't know.
I mean, I'd growl if I were shoved into a cage. But also the eyes are white and not yellow.
Yeah. Well, we know some have yellow and some have red eyes, so maybe there's some that have white eyes.
I like that Hunter is supposed to be like an expert tracker. That's like his whole thing.
Yep.
And like, I don't know. I didn't really see a whole lot of that. He just started booking it and fortunately found that toy.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Maybe he's not great at tracking in like a very busy city where everyone is just leaving their tracks everywhere.
Like there's no sand he could pick up and kind of roll through his fingers. But I do like that. That's kind of it's a really helpful trait to have when you have a kid that keeps disappearing. The fact that you can just sort of, take a couple steps and find her, which is nice. But
we're gonna learn he doesn't actually have any powers. He's just a reg that like accidentally walked into the Bad Batch quarters one day. He's like, I'm totally enhanced.
I've got a tattoo.
Yeah, he's overcompensating with the hair and the tattoo and the headband.
I'm a great tracker. Where do we go?
Maybe
that way.
It's just Rex. It's just Rex is wearing a wig.
Dragonus Prime, thanks for your question. It's your boy regarding the nigh inevitable reunion between Rex and Cody. I feel it can only end in tragedy. I think they'll only meet as Cody dies. Oh, that's sad. I definitely want them to see each other again.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll see each other in Bad Batch?
Mm-hmm.
You do?
I mean, this is just my hope for the series, and maybe this can be like the introduction of the mission for season 2. Is that we know about the chips, we know everything there is about them. Like Tech finally told us everything he knows, and we need to get them out of our brothers' heads. Because like that's what once they reunite with Rex, I really want them to go and try to help other clones like Wolf and Gregor.
Yeah.
But they had to go approach more than just them. So I want to see them approach Cody and see his reaction, and see him maybe turn down the opportunity to take his chip out, and see him maybe actually like fight against it. Like kind of like a Cypher in the Matrix, like ignorance is bliss. Don't take the chip out of my head. I don't want to live with what I did to Obi-Wan or almost did.
Yeah. And that kind of feels in line with Cody's character as well. I think that would be, and it would also be a really interesting kind of awakening for Rex, and I also think it'd be kind of cool to see just other clones, just, because maybe Cody's moving up the ranks. Maybe he's going to have some other sort of loyalty reason other than just, I'm not even sure where I'm going with that, but it just yeah.
Crosshair is kind of taking his place from Legends. Like in Legends, Cody trained stormtroopers, and so that's kind of what we're seeing Crosshair do right now.
Right.
There's still room for Cody to do that, but I'm curious what they're going to do with him, if anything.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were going to see him in this show or not. I do think we're going to see him in the Obi-Wan show, or at least I hope we do. I just think that would be a cool connection.
That's the other thing too. I think we forget a lot about is there's pieces that will be on the board from this show that could show up in Obi-Wan. I keep forgetting that we could see one of the Bad Batch conceivably in Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I hope it's Wrecker. I hope they take Temuera Morrison and just like beef him up with CG. I want to see that.
He's gonna be like, do I have to wear a scar though in every single thing I do?
Yeah, right. It's either that or a face tattoo. What do you want?
Your choice.
Yeah.
That's right.
Maria Espino, thanks for your super chat and question. Could Omega be a clone of the Bad Batch themselves, like a combination of the 4 special ones that they created to be a strand cast for new clones? That would follow through to what Lama Su was saying to Nala Se about like, well, I hope your little experiment pays off because we got to make our money somehow. We got to prove to them why they need our clones.
And then, we only need the one.
Yeah.
Right.
And doesn't Tech have blonde hair?
No, it's brown.
No? Does one of them have blonde hair? I don't know. I'm stuck on the blonde hair thing.
We still don't know why she knew who they were. So that's an interesting connection. That's a really interesting thought.
I'm okay with her just knowing because she is such an outlier and being like, oh, there's other clones that are just very different like me.
Yeah.
But it would also follow with what we've been saying, like, oh, she's got little bits of all of their specialities that come out in different episodes. And
we've talked about the first half of this before where, she seems to be a great shot. She can track, as we saw last week. She can think things through like Tech. We haven't seen her lift anything heavy or hack it. Well, I guess the Echo stuff is different, but the idea that they created her to be a new template, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, that would, like you said, Molly, that tracks.
I like that. That's interesting.
Rick Villanueva, what is up? And thanks for your super chat. Hey, gang, I want to ask a question I asked Pete yesterday. Do you think Omega will have her own armor at some point? And why is Clank the best droid? Rick has a Gonk droid as his profile picture still, so...
As for
I don't know
armor,
that he's fully committed, is all I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. I mean, unless there's another big war happening, I don't see her getting armor.
I disagree.
But she does. I mean, she does get a weapon, so you can't count it out.
I could see it taking a minute. Go ahead, Molly.
Oh, I was just thinking, would they make tiny armor for her, or would they buy tiny armor?
They'll visit the armorer,
right?
The Mandalorian. Well, I like the idea that maybe not in season 1 or 2, but you know how Ahsoka, Ezra, like all of the kid characters at some point go through puberty and get a new model, which you know what, if Omega ages at double the speed, then maybe it would happen between seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And I
would
see
love to
them
see her as an almost adult, or basically adult if she's got the aging properties.
That would be so cool if she got a new model every season and it went on for 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah.
That's 6 to 8 years. And we could see her really grow up. That's really cool. And if she is solidified her place as part of the team, they've all accepted her as a member of the Bad Batch. I think it's a really nice gesture to get her some matching armor.
Also, more opportunities for Funko Pops.
There's that. Yep. There's
100%. Yes.
classic Star Wars. Let's get 5 action figures of the same character.
That's right. Different color hair next year. And I think Rick might have been the one who said it yesterday, but and I love the idea that maybe she modifies some of Crosshair's armor that's still sitting in that box that's on the ship with his equipment. We don't know what that is. We all assume it's amazing weaponry, but maybe she modifies something there.
Maybe Wrecker made her a room. Maybe he.
That's
makes
exactly
her...
what I was going to say. All you have to do
too.
is suggest. Someone has to be near Wrecker and say, like, she doesn't even have armor, and Wrecker will run out of the room and take it.
At the end of the episode, with nice, heartwarming string music, he'll present her with armor. And I've never had my own armor.
It'll be like the most badass armor. It'll be covered in spikes. And like it'll have holsters for grenades, and Wrecker will be like, "Here you go, kid."
Like way too much for a 12-year-old.
She'll put it on. She can't move because it's too heavy.
I can't put my arms down.
Oh man! Now I hope that happens. CC1193, aka Ghost, thanks for your super chat and question. Do you think we're going to see a cameo of well-known Star Wars individuals such as Cal or Ahsoka or even Vader? Alex, you've been advocating or at least speculating about Cal.
This is probably the show or story that I have made the most weird speculation about. And Dryden Voss is one and Cal Kestis is the other. I think they're going to go to Braca. It looked like they went to Braca on the show or in the trailer. And if they're going there, it doesn't have to be a story about Cal, but Molly, you threw out the idea that Omega could just maybe sense, if she's force sensitive, she could see like this little redheaded kid who's trying to hide from these clones, and she's just like, I'll let him be. And that's it.
Or maybe she gets separated from the group
there you
again,
go.
and they have to work together, just the two of them.
Oh my God.
Just very briefly for just that one episode, and
one filler episode with her. And
I love that idea, Molly.
I think that would be cool.
That she, like, it's a junk planet. She falls in a pit, finds a kid that's roughly her age, and they're like, let's work together and get you home. I mean, I'm just not going to tell anyone that I'm a Jedi.
Yeah. Right. We saw it in this episode, and we're going to continue to see it. Just like Sue said, like, kids are going to find trouble. They're just going to end up needing help. So it's
gather all my Cal things and summon this into. Yes, this will happen. Come on.
I think there's a chance we see Vader for 2 reasons. With my Boba Fett sort of theory, hope that I think there's also the chance that Boba has the loyalty to the clones if there is a clone revolution. Vader does not like Tarkin. We have a history of Tarkin and Vader sort of bumping heads, and so I'm not saying they team up, but I am saying it might make more sense when we see Boba taking a job for Vader and Empire, that perhaps there was some sort of at least interaction, some path crossing where Vader may have made it easier for him to escape or the clones to do something. So I see Vader, but again, I don't see him having his own arc or anything like that. I do see him kind of making an appearance or two.
Yeah, I think if the Emperor's going to make more appearances, I don't see why you can't have Vader in there too. Plus, he got that cool little mini makeover at the end of season 7 of the Clone Wars.
Right.
Yeah, look to the models.
I'd like to see just a very crisp, cleaned up version of what that looked like.
Yeah, I think it's very possible that we'll see Vader. Did we talk about Ahsoka already?
No. I don't.
I'm like, I would just. I love Ahsoka, but I'm also like, come on, Dave, you can do a project without Ahsoka. He did Resistance. Resistance didn't have Ahsoka in it, but
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing her with Rex. Like, just the next time we see Rex in an episode, it's with Ahsoka and maybe a couple other clones. I wouldn't mind that, but I also wouldn't mind her not being in this at all.
She's just one of those characters that like is so big and important that like I don't want her to overshadow the Bad Batch. So it's kind of like we were saying, Molly, we didn't want Boba Fett to be in The Mandalorian for a while because we didn't want him to overshadow The Mandalorian. So just like give it a little bit. So maybe not season 1, but season 2, kind of like Rebels. Just let us get to know the characters.
Yeah, and the way that Boba Fett came into the show, we were like, okay, we can't deny that was awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, they did it. They let us get to know Din. We spent plenty of time with Din and Grogu. Enough time. So like that's
not enough time.
Not for you.
Not enough time. He's gone now.
Probably not for good.
That's a different show. We're gonna see him.
No one's ever really gone.
He yeah. Thank you, Pete. He's right behind you, Molly.
You always have him
whatever
right
you
behind
want.
you. That's right.
Some people have said that we might see him in this show. I don't know when or how or where, but
are you for that? I'm not for that.
I don't know.
I'm sure if it happens, I'll be like, fine. But
I think I've gone on the record before saying that I prefer to see the puppet, aka the real thing, rather than an animated. Rather than the animated version.
The animated puppet version versus the animated version. Yeah. I think if we spent more time on Order 66, there was a chance. I think we've kind of moved by our Grogu window here.
I still think there's a chance. I'm just like, I don't need that. I'm fine with him just popping up in The Mandalorian.
Oh, but you're so into corporate synergy. Let's get Cal in there.
No, I've said before that I think that it's very possible. It makes sense, but it feels too corporate synergy to me. Because I mean, baby, like that is them going like, now we can make a Bad Batch Grogu Funko Pop. Like that feels a little too much to me. And I know we'll wind up with all of them.
Right. We'll love them all.
That's why just stop. I don't need more Grogu merchandise because we can't afford it. That's all I'm saying, Disney. We only have so much money and room.
Fair.
Rick Villanueva, thanks for another super chat. There's a business named Ivan's Wampa House all over the episode. Does Ivan cook wampas and serve them?
I didn't notice that.
It must have been in the Arabesh, which I haven't taken the time to translate yet, but good for you, Rick.
Interesting.
Is that going to be in Batu and Disney in a couple of months? Because I'll be there. I'll do it for the breakfast. Sounds like a.
But the Wampa had a story, didn't it?
In the new Facpov?
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like if they've given that Wampa a story and a
well, it doesn't have to be that Wampa
voice. Sure. But if they've done it for that one in a book, I don't know that they're gonna have it as a meal like Galaxy's Edge. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Maybe it's like Frosty the Snowman. Maybe it'd be like an ice cream place, like Ivan's Wampa House. I can deal with that. Like go and get nice cold ice cream to walk around Batu, and I think that'd be cool. I can do that.
This is this is way off topic, but in our D&D game, my DM just remembered that my gnome character has the ability to speak to small animals, and we're on an adventure and we have a bunch of chickens to eat eventually. And so he's been torturing me by having the chicken. Like I'm now friends with all the chickens that eventually we'll have to eat. But
see,
that's what it's making me think.
Never get close to livestock. That's rule number 1.
I don't know if he cooks and serves wampas. That feels like a very difficult meat to obtain. I think it's probably just a fun name.
Yeah, I mean, because Jabba had a wampa head mounted.
Tauntaun head.
Tauntaun, okay. Well,
a lot easier to get a hold of that.
Yeah, maybe wampas are like the Star Wars version of the Abominable Snowman or like Sasquatch, and just only Luke has seen one.
Yeah.
And like it's a themed restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like an ice cream shop. I like that. I'm going with ice cream shop.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because it's 90 degrees here in New Jersey and I'm thinking ice cream shop.
Sounds good. Yeah.
It's probably honestly just something of like someone on the crew had a son named Ivan, and they were like, what's Ivan's favorite Star Wars creature? And they're like, wampas. And they're like, boom,
There you go.
That's a restaurant name. We did it.
Sure. And our last super chat here is, I don't know if I can say this name.
You got it.
Haikon Oren? I don't know what the little
Bacon Oren. Yeah, I don't know.
bubble over the A makes it sound like. But thank you for your super chat. I don't see a message here, but if you had something to send through, just let our mods know.
He's got a cool icon, a little Boba Fett with a top hat. That was pretty neat.
Yeah.
I've got about 10 more minutes. I've got to stop at 7:30, but we got 10 minutes we can still answer some chat questions. And if Hikana, if you have a message you want to get through, make sure our mods see it and I'll keep an eye out. But Rayman says have not heard from them.
Gotcha.
But while I search for a question, Pete, why don't you plug your stuff? Where can people find you online, listen to your podcast and interviews, and follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at ATGcast, and you can find all of our podcasts at atgcast.com. And we have, it's a slightly different show. You know, there's a lot of different podcasts out there, but we do a weekly interview and to take a deep dive. We have podcasters and content creators like yourself, and we had Hal Hickel on, and we've had just about all the major authors have been on the show, and it's been a lot of fun. The show's been running for about 2 years, and so you can find information about the show at ATGcast on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or atgcast.com to find all the episodes.
Thanks.
Well, I mean, not to put you totally on the spot, but Pete was part of the the Solo 2 as written by an artificial intelligence with our friends at Blue Bantha Podcast.
That was a lot of fun. That was good. And I had the great pleasure of playing Jabba the Hutt. I don't know if I was typecast or not, but I had to do the ho, ho, ho. See, I got a little bit of a cough, so I don't know if it's going to work as well with the ho, 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 ho. That's not very good.
Your commitment to like the green screen.
Oh yeah,
I was blown away by that
screen. I had the green cap and the green outfit. Yeah, I was all in, man. Anything for the guys in Blue Bantha Milk. Those guys are a lot of fun. So that was that. But they have another one coming, right? Aren't they doing like
the Calrissian Chronicles?
The Calrissian Chronicles.
Because let's face it, Chris Ryan's Lando is spot on.
His Lando, his Finn, all of it is fantastic.
Yeah.
His Finn yell of Rey was just like super spot on.
So funny.
I was like, we should all just go home.
Which reminds me, my guest next week on Around the Galaxy is Kevin Cabral. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's the guy who did that. He did a TikTok where he did all the different characters saying, call me Senorita.
Oh yeah.
So he's gonna be on the show next week. He's like apparently like he does
cool.
voiceovers and stuff, but I'm gonna get him to say as many bizarre things as I can next week. So make sure to tune in.
That's a good. Is it going to be live?
It'll be a live one, yeah. And
that's a good thing to get chat to submit some ideas.
That'll be fun.
As long as they're appropriate,
right? Yes, I don't want to put him on the spot, but yeah. But yeah, so. Yeah. Do you have more questions coming in?
Hikano Rin says, Tantive 4 would not go past Tatooine. A certain moisture farmer would continue his career. Death Star never destroyed. Tarkin is the chosen one. This feels like an odd prophecy.
Right. You have to like, it'll be reanalyzed for 1,000 years and people will be like, he is the chosen one. Tarkin is
misread perhaps the prophecy was.
Would not get past Tatooine. A certain moisture farmer would continue being a moisture farmer, I guess. The Death Star wouldn't be destroyed. Tarkin is the chosen one.
So, okay, so they're saying that the Tantive, what if the Tantive 4 didn't go over Tatooine?
Right.
Luke, I guess, continued his career as moisture farming.
As his dream showed in the Last Jedi novelization. Right.
The Death Star was never destroyed. Tarkin is the chosen one. He's a little old, but I'm sure he's still spry.
I do like that they've had Tarkin now in just about every single version. He was in Clone Wars, he was in Rebels, and he's now in this. And Stanton's Tarkin is so spot on. It's so good.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, and this is kind of a little tangent from that, but when we saw Tarkin's reflection in Rogue One, I was like, wow, that's a good way to bring him into this.
Yeah.
And then when he turned around, I was like, oh my God, we're getting this. But it was so great to see that, because I think, and that's what I'm really digging about this, and I think I said it a little bit earlier, is sort of seeing what's happening in the Empire at this time. Like, it is such a backstabbing, like, what's Rampart really up to? Sure, he's kissing butt right now, but he's got plans, right? Rampart wants to do something himself, and everybody. I mean, we saw it with Krennic. Krennic was trying to do his thing, and think about that from where we are in storytelling from a Star Wars perspective right now. We're playing a lot in this space, because we're going to get Kenobi, we're going to get Andor, which is, there could be direct connections from the things that we're learning about the Empire right now in Andor, because do we know how far ahead of episode 4 Andor comes out? We don't, do we? We just know it's sometime before that. So it could be in the heat of some of the things that we're going to see get set up in this season, in this series. So it's a really cool time. I mean, this is the time that I've been dying to see more content on. So we're so lucky as Star Wars fans right now. I mean, that's the thing. Every time I see, look, I know there's a lot of people that Twitter and social media is a place to go and complain, and we all do it, and I love it, and that's fine. But man, we can't complain about anything. We have so much great stuff on the horizon. It's just fantastic. It's such a great time to be a fan.
Yeah, and you reminded me that Krennic is someone that I think might show up in this show, just because if my theory about the Death Troopers is right, the Death Troopers were with him a lot of the time.
Yep.
In Rogue One, so I wonder if we'll get Krennic meeting Crosshair, and I don't know, maybe he's involved in War Mantle.
Yeah, we could even see Galen Erso, right? Because the Death Star has begun production, right? So we could get some of that stuff, which would be great.
Looks like Andor is going to be 5 years before A New Hope. Just looked that up to check.
So that's about 15 years before this.
I want to throw out. So,
14. Yeah.
Looks like Hakana had more to his prophecy. I want to make sure that we read that, because it was a very generous super chat. And also, Dwarf King 01, thanks for your question. Why should Oppo Rensis be everyone's favorite Jedi?
Because
I mean, I love him. I don't know. I want to know how he fights. You know, how does he hold a lightsaber? He's a big snake. Like, I want to see him in action.
Yeah,
he's a big snake with like really funky hair. I kind of love him.
He's definitely like a concept sketch that nobody expected to get made, and they're like, "No, we're gonna go with that one."
Oh, you are?
You are? Okay.
I made that as a joke.
The people doing the makeup for him in the movie is like, "Oh God, this is like what nightmares are made of." But okay,
yeah,
I'll make this.
They were gonna give him a lightsaber in the Clone Wars, like season 6 or 7. There's
really?
concept art of him and his lightsabers. So.
Wait. Was he one of the ones that was in the High Republic or mentioned in the High Republic?
Yes. Also, I believe he's mentioned as having survived Order 66. So,
hey, he could be anywhere.
He's a survivor, man. Yeah. He has been around forever.
Maybe they'll put him in Bad Batch, because if they made the model, it's like, let's use this. Get that lightsaber out there.
Start the rumor he's in Mando season 3. He's
confirmed. His lightsaber looked really cool. Hakana Ren, I gotta run in just a couple minutes, but if you just post your message back in the chat, I'm keeping an eye on it. But I'll use this time to remind everyone to go check out the description. We have links to all of Pete's stuff, the podcast, his YouTube channel, your website. So go check that out. Pete, thanks for joining us. That was so much fun.
This was great. I was gonna say it up front, and it's really true and cheesy, but you guys are some of the reason why I ended up getting into doing podcasting. You were definitely one of the first channels that I followed a couple years ago, once Star Wars channels started being a thing, and it's exciting to have gotten to know you guys over the last couple of years. And thank you so much for having me on the show. This has been a blast.
Great chat. Thanks so much.
Cool. Yeah, and I love their Twitter. I forget what it's called, but I couldn't make it on there last week, but the Twitter.
Oh yeah, the Twitter Spaces. Yeah, me and David
Twitter
have been doing this.
Spaces.
I'm glad you reminded me. We try to do this every Thursday night. We call it a pregame. It's just it's funny. It's sort of like sports radio. It's the caller there. We bring people in, and you guys are welcome to join us anytime. So that'd be fun. So we talk about the week before, and you guys talk about the current week on Friday nights, which is great.
Yeah, and it's really cool because it's on Twitter, and like pretty much anyone can basically like raise their hand and come and like chime in, and
you never know who's going to come in. We've seen spaces where people were just shocked to who they are that are there, which is kind of cool. So But this was so much fun, guys. Thank you so much for the invite. It was an honor and a privilege to be here, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Anytime. And we will close out the show with the final bit from Hakonaren's prophecy. So, okay, Tarkin throws away his chance to kill Saw in episode 1 by testing Clone Force 99. So, yeah, they could have assassinated Saw. If Saw had died, then there was no one to raise Jyn. And then no one would get the plans. And then the plans wouldn't go to the Tantive 4.
Wow.
And then that wouldn't get to wouldn't get to Tatooine. And then no one would have destroyed the Death Star.
Okay.
That's awesome connection. So Tarkin kind of can blame himself for the Death Star being destroyed.
I feel like this was written by the guy that didn't shoot the escape pod in A New Hope.
It's not
no
my
life
fault.
forms aboard. It's not my fault though. Tarkin could have killed Saw Gerrera 20 years ago.
It's awesome. Fantastic.
That sounds like Tarkin though. He's evacuated our moment of triumph. No. Yeah.
So good. So good.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone for watching and hanging out with us. Thank you for your super chats, Hakonaren. I'm so glad we got that one in. Because it's much clearer once you got the full picture.
Yes.
We are going to be back next week. On Wednesday, we'll do our normal Lego stream. I think we're going to do R2D2.
I just got my R2. I can't wait to do that one.
Yeah, it looks pretty great. And for episode 5, we're going to have Jordan Mazon on from Cinelinx.
Awesome.
Nice.
So that'll be our show for next week. But until then, just thank you. Have a great weekend, and may the Force be with you.
Take care.